Hey, what's up, you guys, and welcome back to Girl Chat Sports. We are on episode 53.
53.
Or as I used to call it back in my college days, Finitray, because that was our boy Odell's number back at school. Go Huskies! Speaking of back home, well, before we get to back home, check us, stay tuned, hang in there and listen for Naomi Tate. She is the draftqueens.co woman. I mean, this woman knows her fantasy sports. We are planning to have an awesome guest to talk about fantasy football because, as many of you do or don't know, fantasy football drafting is now upon us. I have one draft this weekend. I've got two over Labor Day and one that's still being worked out. So stay tuned. We'll have some tips. Steph is a newbie at it, so we'll have her ask some questions in regards to kind of some of the basic lingo and the knowledge behind it. And we'll kind of see what Naomi thinks is maybe being some sleepers and busts and who to put your money on if you're doing a PPR league. So, without further ado, Steph, I'm tired. How about you?
Real tired, but you've been traveling.
Man, so I was in Seattle for a long weekend. Can I just say that I overbooked myself? I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been home all summer, which is odd. I usually go home probably in the beginning of the summer. So I went home on Thursday morning. Who else books a 6 a.m. flight but me? Why? And I finished packing at 2 in the morning. So. Nice. Yeah, that was good. I was really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for my full day of river rafting in the Skycomish River on Thursday, which was awesome. Shout out to my girl Steph for that one. We floated. But Friday I was at the Seahawks game versus the Vikings, which was an awesome game. Saturday I went to a Bryson Tiller concert, hung out, went down to Pike Place. Sunday we had the Big 3 Seattle playoffs there at Key Arena. I mean, it was awesome to have Gary Payton, Rashard Lewis, of course, both previous Sonics that played at Key Arena, how many years ago, 11, 12, 20, all there. I had media pass, so that was cool. We got to listen on some of the interviews. Saw Allen Iverson up close and personal, so that was awesome. And then directly after that, I took an Uber back to CenturyLink to watch my Seattle Sounders, my very first professional MLS game. So, and they actually won that game. So I feel like we all know that last year my record for going to games that the Seahawks won was not so great, but I thoroughly have convinced myself now that my luck has changed. Wherever I go, my teams win. Because even though the Big 3's three-headed monster, which is the team that has Gary Payton and Rashard Lewis on it, they won, and they're not a Seattle team, but basically those two are Seattle, so technically they still won. So they won, the Seahawks and the Sounders. It's a win-win. It was
your good luck charm this season.
And then I came back, and my head's been going crazy. So I'm a little tired. Steph's had quite the week as well. Yeah. So we apologize if we are kind of out of cahoots or whatnot. But a lot of stuff has been going on as far as, first of all, we're in Vegas, as many of you know, and this is probably the biggest weekend outside of New Year's or anything else. So usually the week before Labor Day is pretty dead here. It's never anything going on. It's the schools just started. Labor Day is coming where people will come get their 3-day weekend in. But no, this is the Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor huge bout is coming on Saturday. Can you believe this? It's already happening.
The sports books are going crazy right now.
Sports books are nuts. Let's say, so back when they first announced the fight, I think Conor McGregor was plus 1,100. So if you would have put down $20, I mean, you're quadrupling your money. Now it's not as high. I mean, he's still not the favorite. Mayweather clearly is still the favorite. But here's the deal. Should anything happen that no one is expecting as far as Conor winning or Conor somehow making a knockout happen, the sports books are in dead.
Oh yeah, it's going to be the biggest lost in sports history.
The biggest.
If he wins. The sports books could actually lose close to $50 million if McGregor pulls it off. So right now, 36 hours, they said before the fight, you can actually put down $100 on Mayweather. I'm sorry, you can win $100 if you bet $550. So
which is crazy.
Now is your chance if you were wanting to.
No, I'm putting money on McGregor. I'm putting $20 down, so just in the slim chance that anything happens, I'm going to come out with $100, I think. I don't have the math right.
They said that 95% of all bets are going to McGregor, even though most people believe that Mayweather's going to win.
Well, yeah, because I mean, why not? Like, that's your biggest payout. And most people that gamble professionally are looking for that biggest payout or the guaranteed money. But with Mayweather, you got to put so much down just to win a little, it's not even worth it.
Speaking of money, it's this fight is going to garner, on pay-per-view, $700 million worldwide.
Oh my God. That's because no one's buying tickets for the actual fight. Have you seen the ticket costs?
Dude, Costco is selling tickets to the fight.
What's the price?
I think it was like $3,400
I mean, like really? Like, I saw there was a pair courtside that were like $1 million.
Shout out to Costco for getting those discount tickets.
Is that part of the Costco travel plan? I mean, good Lord. So, yeah, that's out here. It's a Wednesday evening. So, really, tomorrow, a bunch of people are flying in. Like, I don't even have to mention names because I've been getting hit on every DM, IG, text, Facebook, Messenger. Hey, you in town? Well, yeah, you and the entire world and everybody's grandmother and grandson. And I don't know.
Are they trying to stay with you or what?
I think that's the overall like last question, but I cut it off.
Do you have a couch?
I've got a futon. I've got 2 couches. I mean, I've got plenty of space, but it's not happening.
Let me get your Airbnb info.
Right? I'm going to charge you what Airbnb would. So let's just put it that way. But it's not Airbnb that way. I can't get, have a lawsuit pending on me in the future for not having no license.
So Demi Lovato is going to sing the national anthem at the fight.
I heard, and what I didn't know about her is that she actually is training, and she trains MMA.
Yeah, she's a fan and a fighter, if you will.
I mean, that's where she gets the hot body. Kudos to Demi Lovato because her body's nice. She's a beautiful woman, and she's MMA. I mean, how many guys? It's like a girl that loves sports, guys. I mean, how can you not go wrong, right?
Did you hear that Diddy and Mark Wahlberg are making a $200,000 bet on the fight?
I did, and Diddy, of course, is going for Mayweather, and Mark Wahlberg is going for McGregor,
yeah.
Of course, yeah. Hey, I'm for it. I mean, shoot. I mean, that's kind of a different bet because it's flat, straight money. So I don't know if I would do it myself. But if you got the money to waste, like, why not, right?
They did it with the Mayweather and Pacquiao fight, and Mark lost. He was betting on Pacquiao.
Mark wants his money back.
But he donated it to charity. So
that's good. That's good. So, yeah. So that's happening this weekend on Saturday. Also on Saturday is the Big 3 Championship. So like I mentioned earlier, I got blessed with some media passes for the event in Seattle for the playoffs. Me and Steph are still holding tight that we'll be able to get a couple access media passes for this weekend's event. Please, fingers crossed. But the event was awesome. I mean, it was so nice, to be at Key Arena and see guys basketball again. I know that's where the Storm play, but it was nice to see these guys who had been in Key Arena before come back and play, like Kenyon Martin, Steven Jackson, Allen Iverson. All these guys had played there at some point, so it was cool to see them all come back. It was cool to see the crowd. I mean, we're talking a ton of Gary Payton jerseys, some Detlef Schrempf jerseys. I almost wore my Kendall Gill jersey, but Kendall wasn't playing, unfortunately, so I had my old school Seahawks or Sonic shirt to bring them back. But it was great. The crowd was great. In that final game where Three-Headed Monster secured their championship game, they actually the audience went into a roar because Rashard Lewis basically guided them into that game and won them in the semifinals. So all the fans were on their feet. It was like the Seattle Sonics that were going to the finals against the Chicago Bulls back in 96, 97. That's how I felt. It was that great. I still am energized over. Like, it just gave me energy thinking about it now. So that was really cool. Again, they'll be playing
against Trilogy,
which is Kenyon Martin's team. He's the player coach. They'll be playing this Saturday. So unlike the other Big 3 Big 3 games that were televised and then recorded and then televised the next day. So the games happened Sunday. They were televised on Monday. This one is going to be live. So it's actually going to be live and not just on FS1, it's going to be on Fox Sports itself. So we're talking on Fox main station. They'll be playing, I believe it's at 1:30. 1:30 Pacific time here in Las Vegas, so that's going to be awesome. You'll see the three-headed monsters with Rashard Lewis, who was named the most valuable player today. So the league, Big 3 league, just sent over some information through media in regards to the player awards. So Rashard Lewis from Three-Headed Monster, of course, was the MVP of the league. This guy, I'm talking like 170 points over those 9 games, averaging 21.3 points per game. Awesome. Coach of the Year, Rick Mahorn from Trilogy. Player Captain of the Year, Kenyon Martin from Trilogy. Defensive Player of the Year, James White from Trilogy. Too Hard to Guard. I love that. First of all, that's hilarious. Too Hard to Guard was Al Harrington from Trilogy. So Trilogy took home 4 of these awards. They're also undefeated. They were 9-0, including that last playoff game. Best Trash Talker, I'd have to agree. Steven Jackson from the Killer Threes. That man, I mean, he is... It was funny enough to see Gary Payton talk so much trash from the coach's mark, on the bench, but seeing Steven Jackson talk that much trash on the court was funny too. And then Katino Mobley somehow was the best dressed. I never got to see him dressed because usually when we're out there, they're already in their uniforms, but apparently best dressed, he was from Power. And then the 4th man goes to Al Thornton from Three's Company. So those are just a few of those awards that were for the 2017. So the guys this Saturday are playing for the first ever inaugural championship trophy. If you check out Girl Chat Sports on either Instagram or Twitter, I've posted that trophy. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is something to see. I almost wanted to kiss it myself.
Well, it's good to know that it was successful so that they'll continue this.
It was definitely successful, and Fox Sports did pick them up for a second season. Cool. So congratulations to Ice Cube, to Allen Iverson, to whomever else. I did ask Allen Iverson if there's anything that they'd want to be changing. I'm going to be posting those interviews too. I still need to post ones from the draft. I apologize. Because I personally was asking, are they going to show it the same day? It's kind of hard to record. All your friends might be at the games showing them live. I was shooting live while I was there, and then they don't show the next day. And they were like, we don't really care what happens. We just want to keep it going. So they didn't seem to be too pressed for changes at this time.
The strip is going to be crazy on Saturday.
Saturday's going to be nuts. Completely nuts. But anyway, so moving on from that, I also, like I told you, got to see my very first live soccer game. Well, MLS game. We had went to a soccer game last year. Mexico, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was good. But I had never seen the Seattle Sounders play before. I heard that there was a lot of hype into it. Can I just tell you, the fans don't sit down.
Really?
I brought my boy Jabari to the game. I was like, hey, I got an extra ticket because my brother, shout out to my brother who canceled on me last minute. I took my boy Jabari. We're standing there in these seats and no one's sitting. And I'm like, so no one sits ever? So no one sat. So there's 2 halves, 45 minutes apiece. No one sat until halftime.
And I'm sure you were tired from...
And I had just been up and downstairs. No, this was after the Big 3. 5 hours of Big 3 that I was at Key Arena. Straight over to the Sounders game, and then I couldn't stand. So you could sit, but then you can't see nothing. Anyways, long story short... The game ended with a penalty kick by Clint Dempsey in their extended time. So what happens is that when the ref adds on time for when certain things happen during the games. And so this was in that extended time, which means it was in the time after the 90 minutes for an initial game where Clint Dempsey clipped a penalty kick. We won, Sounders win, and my good luck streak continued for the weekend.
How fun.
I know. But let's talk about football a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah.
So I was also at a Seahawks game on Friday. We played the Vikings. I was thrilled. I had awesome seats. Shout out to Young Choi, my boy again, for the great seats. Can I tell you, I sit down, he's like, hey, do you see our names there? And I was like, well, your names are going to be on this. His name and his brother's name are literally on these little plaques that are on the back of the chair. And I was like, okay,
Dang.
ballin'. So me and my girlfriend, Heather, who's also Asian like myself, we're like, we're going to be honorary Choi family members. Like, this is...
You can pass.
We can pass for Choi family members. So, again, shout out to Young. Those tickets were awesome. I'll be back in those seats for the Texans game coming in the end of October, where I'm going to go head-to-head with our girl, Natasha Gransberry from the Gransberry, because she's a Texans fan. So, we're going to be boop, 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 my team against hers. Anyways, Seahawks. We won. We're 2-0, just like the Browns. Can you believe it? The Browns are 2-0 in preseason. I said that here.
They got a new rookie quarterback.
Yo, he's good, too. I didn't know. I mean, I was never paying attention to Notre Dame football last year, but, yeah, the guy is good. So, anyways, Seahawks, real quick. It was great. Michael Bennett sat for the national anthem, which I am fully supportive of, which I also enjoyed seeing Justin Britt, who is one of our other players. He's a Caucasian player, if you don't know who Justin Britt is, and he actually had his arm on Bennett's shoulder in support of the movement and to him, just basically he said, I want people to have the quality they deserve, which I believe in 100%. So that was great to see. What also I thought was interesting was Michael Bennett had hosted the family of Charlene Lyles, who was a woman who got shot and killed by the Seattle Police Department earlier this year. He hosted her family at the Seahawks camp, which I thought was also great. We had a great team. We had a great look on our team, except for the fact that George Fant, our offensive tackle, our left tackle, he got injured, season-ending injury. This guy was training so hard in the offseason. We were so excited to actually have some really great changes in the offensive line to help support Russell Wilson and all of our efforts on offense, and he's out for the season. So that's a little crappy. But Kason Williams, he's a former Husky and continues to impress people during the preseason. Had a great catch, almost like a circus catch that led to a touchdown against the Vikings. So we beat the Vikings. Blair Walsh, our kicker, who was a Vikings kicker, was giving them stare eyes and was grilling them back and forth. So that was pretty interesting. But those are my Seahawks. I'm super happy about them and excited. What's going on with your Cowgirls?
Can I say 2 words? Cooper Rush.
Oh.
I really hope that nothing ever happens to Dak at all ever. But I was really scared about having Kellen Moore as our backup.
Really?
And he's about to lose his job. Yeah, so Cooper Rush is, he completed better than 80% of his passes, 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So I was really proud of the kid. And yeah, Kellen Moore is walking around with a lump in his throat right now that he may not make it on the squad.
Wow. Well, what about Ezekiel Elliott? So we all know that he had the DV investigation since our last podcast, he got hit with a 6-game suspension. He started the appeal process. Is there anything else new regarding that? Do we know?
So he really
besides
can't
partying in Texas on the water.
He can't sit down for not even 2 weeks. He can't stay out of the public eye. He can't just go ahead and be quiet until the 29th of August. Yeah, so anyway, I don't know if it was TMZ or whoever reported some pictures of him partying on a lake on a boat with a bunch of young ladies.
Well, hopefully he wasn't coddling their breasts with his hands on the boat. It's not funny to laugh at, but I mean, clearly this guy is not understanding what's happening. I don't think Jerry must approve of this.
I mean, obviously it was the Cowboys' off day, so he's welcome to do what he wants. I just don't think it's the smartest thing for him to be doing stuff like that in the public eye for now. I think that it doesn't really look good as far as showing remorse or anything like that. So hopefully he'll get a lesser suspension when they have the hearing on the 29th.
I'm hoping for not, but that's of course just my own biased opinion.
So Roger Goodell appointed Harold Henderson to do the hearing. This guy actually did the case for Greg Hardy, which he reduced from 10 to 4 game suspension. But then he also did the hearing for Adrian Peterson, and his suspension was upheld until it was overturned. So, and this was all before the new conduct policy. So,
interesting. Speaking of Roger Goodell, that asshole is going to be in for the next another 5 years. Contract extension through 2024. Oh Lord, I can just imagine the more conspiracies that are headed our way. You all know my conspiracy theory for Super Bowl 49. But anyways, this is another one. I think Roger Goodell's just full of it. So we get to have him for 5 more years. Woo! Other than that, Hard Knocks is on, and I've just finished watching this, episode 3. I love Jameis Winston.
I do too.
I love his southern draw.
He's country.
I love how he motivates his team. He's shaking everybody's hand before everything. This man is playing ping pong with the other QBs. They're battling for the backup position and third string and whatnot. This man is just amazing. I am now a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan for the preseason just because I like them like that.
Yeah, I'm watching as well, and I'm starting to fall in love with the team, but they will never be number one.
So anyways, you guys, we're going to wrap up that part of our show. We're going to take a little commercial break, and we're going to come right back with our guest, Naomi Tate. She's going to talk some fantasy football with us from draftqueens.co. All right, see you, bye.
How would you like to make the impossible possible? With professional and personal needs by Envision for You Concierge. With an array of services for you, the professional. So professional athletes, celebrities, VIP and corporate executives, Envision for You strives to assist with travel, hotel, luxury car service, dinner and show reservations, VIP services, as well as consumer relations. Envision for You also offers mobile services, as well as organic tanning, massage therapy, hair and makeup, men's grooming, fashion stylist, appointment setting, and more. Envision for You Concierge with nationwide services 24/7. Envision for You will never hesitate to go the extra mile for your professional and personal needs. So call today 323-300-4592, 323-300-4592, or visit online at envisionforyou.com.
All right, and welcome back to Girl Chat Sports. So we are now with Naomi Tate, who is started the draftqueens.co. Naomi, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you guys for you coming on.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So as you know, it's fantasy. It's close to being fantasy draft time. If you haven't already drafted, your drafts will be coming up in most fantasy leagues, whether it be this weekend, the next week. It's kind of like the huge 2 or 3 weeks before the season starts, usually when those drafts happen. So we wanted to have you on to kind of give us, like a tutorial a little bit, a little cliff notes for Stephanie, who's new to this, to fantasy, as well as give me a couple pointers or tips that you might have, because my first draft is going to be this Saturday. But first of all, tell us about you. Like, what got you, into sports? How did you start this love of fantasy football? Are you just into fantasy football? Is there other sports that you're into as far as fantasy wise? Give us some information on you.
Okay, sure. So I have always had a fond of sports all my life. I used to watch baseball religiously, but when I got married about 5 years ago, my husband took over the TV every Sunday, and everybody was yelling at him and throwing stuff at him to move out of the way, and he wasn't listening. So I just was like, if you can't beat them, join them.
There you go.
Started watching it, and then I also started getting interested in fantasy football. My husband couldn't make any sense of it. Mm-hmm. My dad was actually the one that was playing fantasy football. He plays DFS on DraftKings.
Okay. And DFS stands for, just for our listeners, DFS.
Oh, I'm sorry. DFS stands for Daily Fantasy Sports.
Right.
So it's instead of drafting an entire roster that plays for the entire season, you can choose an entire roster week by week. So you'd be playing the matchups that they're going to be facing instead of like what their production is going to be for the whole year.
Right. And it's nice for those that are gamblers out there. They can bet on those games pretty easy. There's apps for those games, like the DraftKings, and I think there's a couple other brands out there that do them. So awesome. So your dad was the one that started that.
Right. He's the one who started it, and he was wanting to, converse with a couple of people about who might be good picks. I remember watching preseason last year and being super impressed with Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. So that kind of got my juices pumped and everything. And to be honest with you, I've only been playing for about a year and a half. But I've grasped it and kind of outshined my dad and my husband when it comes to talking shit about football.
There you go.
I love it. That's what we like to hear. But even after being in there a year, you learn, and it sounds like you actually really do your homework. I think we had mentioned earlier is that there wasn't necessarily no favorite team of yours right now, but that you're really into the players and kind of like, each individual and how their performance is.
Right. It's really interesting to me, like looking at everybody who's into fantasy and all the stats that they keep, nobody keeps the same stats. And so everybody's trajectory of how these players are going could be completely different on how you're actually seeing it, and how that plays out in each week or each season. It, to me, is interesting. I liken fantasy football to like playing the stock market.
That's I think that, yeah,
Good
that makes
analogy,
sense.
for sure.
Definitely makes sense. So for Stephanie, she's a newbie. I've been trying to drag her in last year. She wouldn't happen.
I'm still not caving.
She's still not caving.
Because I feel like it's a lot of work. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm already obsessed with sports as it is. I feel like it would be doing a lot of extra homework. Tell me, how does this all work? Like, I understand that you pick a team. I mean, you pick players for your team.
Right. So if you think of, first of all, before we start, just let me say congratulations to, coming over to the dark side of female fantasy football freaks.
Yes.
To me, if you're a sports fan at all, playing fantasy just heightens that. It makes you that much more excited because not only do you get to see those players that you pick score on the screen, but they're also scoring on your personal team. You get to rub it in somebody's face and things like that. So,
well, no, I think for me personally, like you not only are you watching your like for me, I love watching my Seahawks play, but betting, I used to bet parlays a lot, and that always kept me watching all the rest of the games. But playing fantasy, it makes you want to also watch each individual on these teams, because I may hate the Cowboys, but I may have Dak Prescott, so I'm rooting for him on the side because I want him to win my game for that week. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so go ahead. So maybe give us the bare essentials. Like if you're in a regular, let's say like a PPR league, which is a point per, help me out. Point per reception.
Point per reception. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So the biggest thing about, any lineup that you create is you need to know the rules and how your league scores. Just like how you said PPR, points per reception, you need to know how many points does the person get whenever they score a touchdown. How much do they get whenever that they're, rushing yards, when they're actually just running on the field carrying the ball and things like that. With PPR, the thing that you're always going to be looking at is targets. Even if they don't if they're not always the red zone target, if they're the one that gets them down the field and it takes them 10 times to get down the field, you just got 10 points.
Right.
Plus however much yardage that they carried. So that's actually one of the.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's actually one of the reasons why David Johnson is so high on everybody's list, because not only is he a running back that carries those yards, but he's a running back that also demands those receptions.
He is, and he's top of the list. So when it comes down to drafting your team, most people, there's one quarterback, there's I think 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, sometimes a flex, depending on your league. It could be a wide receiver, a third wide receiver, or it could be a flex, which means you could have a running back or a wide receiver or even a tight end in that position if you happen to have Gronkowski or whomever is hot right now. But as far as when it comes to the drafting, if it's like a 10-person league, is there a position that you've favorited? I mean, do you do a lot of the mock drafting? Is there places that you'd rather be in a draft?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of people are going to say they'd like to be first because they get the first pick, but I'd like to be like maybe third or fourth. I want to see if somebody's going to leave, who they're going to leave on the table. Somebody might actually go second and leave Le'Veon Bell when you were anticipating not being able to draft him, and why wouldn't you snatch that up?
Right.
There's a lot of like big portions or big players that are left on the waiver for you to pick up, depending on where you're at. And just like the real draft in April, you want to go for whoever is the best person that's on the board still. Same thing. Now, as far as mock drafts go, I haven't done one for like fantasy football, but I did do mock draft, for the real draft last year, and that was pretty fun.
Oh, okay.
So since I'm pretty clueless, how do you determine who gets to pick in what order and whatnot?
Well, in fantasy, whenever you sign up, the 10 to 12 people sign up, I think it really has to go with whoever signs up first, and then it kind of just automatically puts you in that order. Like on my Flea Flicker league right now, it's whoever signs up, they're first, then second, then third, and then it snakes back around. And also, depending on which league you're in, it might depend on how you can pick. It might snake around where, the second round, the first person is now last,
right,
instead of being first again. And you have to take that into consideration of your league as well.
So how do you choose, is it everybody, all 10 of those people start out with quarterbacks, or you can pick anybody?
Whatever you want first, yeah, right?
Yeah, you can pick whatever you want first, and realistically, taking a quarterback first probably isn't the best way to go. In fantasy, the quarterback is probably the least valued position besides the kicker, only because unless they're a running quarterback, but they have to be effective at running and throwing like Marcus Mariota in order for that to be a very viable choice for you.
To get more points,
right.
I understand.
Right. And
right.
Sometimes the thing is that not necessarily winning quarterbacks are going to be winning for fantasy. So you may have like a Aaron Rodgers or maybe even a Matt Flynn, but sometimes they don't say, depending on how your league is set up to score, Marcus Mariota may have had more points for you at certain games because of how he was running with it or some of the passes. So even if they might have lost 3 games in a row, he still may be, depending on the defense he's playing, maybe the person you want to choose. So
tell me how injuries or say for instance suspensions work if you chose that player.
Like Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay. So here's the deal with Ezekiel Elliott. He's already anticipated being very high on the draft board. With his suspension, the way that it rides right now, even though he appealed it, he's supposed to be coming back week 8 because of the Cowboys bye in week 6. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to me, if you're going to miss a running back with his caliber, for that long, to me, I wouldn't draft him. But there's a lot of other people that are saying, yeah, go ahead and draft him. He's going to produce. I just can't see how he's going to be able to produce the same amount of numbers in half the season. Now, he might be able to produce, on that back end. And if you're playing daily fantasy sports, then that may play out for you. Don't start picking him until, you can. But if you were playing like a dynasty league, you might, have to prey on the people who aren't paying attention to the news and things like that, and probably try to suggest a trade maybe week 4 or 5, and then, give up give up a couple somebody in order to get Ezekiel Elliott if you think that he's going to, give you those points.
Well, and what was huge this year, too, is that you've got the Odell Beckham kind of injury. I mean, he hurt his ankle. We've got a high sprain. We've got Ezekiel being suspended for the possible 8 games when he comes back the 8th week. Is that had your draft occurred prior to this, you could have drafted both those people and may have been
right.
SOL. So luckily for most people, those the drafts usually take place after preseason because you've made it through preseason through the 52-man rosters, injuries, stuff like that. You never know what's going to happen. So
right.
that definitely.
So as far as playing, I remember hearing last year someone saying that somebody got a lot of yards but they didn't play him. How often or how do you choose who you're playing?
If you're in a dynasty, you're probably going to keep on your roster from week to week the majority of your players. But there's some people that you might want to, what we call stream in. When you stream a person in, that's like your quarterback, for instance. Let's say you have Tyrod Taylor this week and he has a great matchup, maybe against the Rams where, they're not doing all that well. He's able to run for you, get a couple touchdowns with Zay Jones or whatever. But the next week they might be playing like Green Bay. So you don't want to play Tyrod Taylor. What you do is you put him on the waiver wire, mm-hmm. and then you try to trade with somebody or pick up another quarterback that's sitting there like kind of sort of on the bench.
And just so we know, Dynasty leagues, those are the leagues that you're carrying players over into the next year. So you've drafted initially, and every time, the new season starts, you're taking certain players with you because you've drafted them like that.
Oh, wow.
Others play, I know all of my leagues aren't Dynasty, so I'm re-choosing every year new players. So you always have, I think it's, 9 players at a time that you're playing? Or wait, 1, 2...
I think it is about 9.
9.
Yeah.
So you also got about 5 players usually on the bench. So that's when you're swapping in. You never know. Sometimes that's why it's really important to watch the defenses you're playing against, the matchups your wide receiver might have, the defensive lines that your quarterbacks are playing or your running backs are playing, because those may decide your matchup that you want. You may want to substitute one person in for the other because they have a better matchup. And those are the people that are like, oh, shoot. Sometimes there's rookies out there. Last year, Tyler Lockett. I got him because I was like, oh, he's going to do so great this year. And he had a couple great games where I didn't play him because he's not like a wide receiver 1 in most leagues ever. But he had a couple great games where, he hit for 3 touchdowns or for 2 touchdowns, and he's gotten you 20 points. So that's what part of the fantasy part is. You're doing your homework. You're kind of researching each player, the defenses that they're going against. Fantasy football, Steph. Come on.
That seems like a lot of math and a lot of studying.
And here's the deal. It's really up to your commissioner, too. I have a really crappy not crappy, but every year in my guys' league, the commissioner changes, and they want to always change up some crazy rules. So it might be if you're rushing over 100 yards, you get an extra, 50 points, something crazy to where it's what the heck is going on? So every year, it's always good to definitely look over the rules of your commissioner who's ever made those rules up. Also, what's very important, which I'm sure you're aware of too, Naomi, is that your bye weeks are really important. Because I remember my first year drafting, I had picked all these players, and most of them had bye weeks around 8 and 9. So when it comes to week 8 and 9, you have no one to play.
Oh, nice.
And every year it seems to be that a lot of the most popular players usually have the same bye weeks. I haven't looked at them this year yet necessarily, but last year it was I think week 8 and 10. I mean, it's always somewhere where you're oh shit, what am I going to do this week because all your players are on bye. So
yeah, definitely. It got me even last year with with DSS. I was, trying to pick a lineup, and I'm like, why isn't so-and-so on here? Where are they at? Oh, dang, they got to buy.
Right, exactly.
So as far as you helping women with their draft, how is it that you get disseminate the information? I did check out your website. I did sign up for your notifications.
Hey.
But how do you provide the information to women?
Okay, so I do provide it through a newsletter where I give more background information on how to assess more knowledge on the newsletter than I do on my blog. I do also do articles, long form articles. Some of them are fantasy related and some of them aren't necessarily. I think I'm just kind of stretching my writing skills out. But really, the majority of it is, who do you trust for your information? Everybody doesn't have time to be able to sit here in front of the computer all day, every day, understanding who's hurt and everything else. So who do you trust for your information? Where can you go to find the latest information? Who's updating, all the time, and things like that? People that you follow on Twitter, are they engaging with you? Are they not engaging with you? Is the stuff that they're giving you correct? Have you tried somebody on your lineup and it paid out for you? If so, then you probably want to keep listening, to them. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I've listened to you guys sometimes. I listen to, the RotoWire, Roto World, fantasy footballers, you name it. I give everybody a try just because you never know where that one sliver of extra information might just set, your lineup off. But,
is there a particular one that you like the best as far as where you have found that their information has always been pretty spot on? Or, and with fantasy, you never can know 100%, but is there some place that you go that's your main go-to?
Yeah, the 2 places that I go that's my main go-to is Roto World and then the Fantasy Footballers. They have a product that's called the Ultimate Draft Kit, and they pretty much do all the research for you. And, listening to the podcast along with that helped me out a lot.
I love those guys. Those are literally, and I'm kind of mad that you said it on the podcast because I don't want any of my friends that are in my leagues to know that that's one of my favorites, except for that they're Cardinals fans, and it drives me crazy because they always want to talk shit about the Seahawks. But yeah, I love those guys, so that's really cool. So before we get out of here, because we're kind of pushing towards our time's up spot, is there anything that is there any persons or players that you are looking at right now as far as being like a sleeper? Which means, Steph, is that it's the person that a player that maybe isn't slated to be super high in the draft or in your fantasy league as far as ranking, but people think that they're going to do really well this year, and so they're probably going to get more bang for their buck necessarily. Is there anybody that you think of that you can think of that you're really looking at as far as sleeper wise, or on the other side, someone like a bust that you're staying clear away from?
Yeah, two people that I think of whenever I'm thinking about sleepers this year is definitely going to be Sam Bradford, only because his strength of schedule for a quarterback is the easiest out of the whole league. With his accuracy, ability to lay it right there where it needs to be, and also a couple of upgraded targets, I think he's going to be a lot better fantasy wise than people are giving him credit for.
Wow.
And then also Pierre Garçon. I don't know if that name, if you guys have heard him be thrown around or not, but I feel like everybody's counting out 49ers this year. Brian Hoyer. And,
I do every year, but that's okay.
Of course, as a Seahawks fan. Well, Brian Hoyer, Pierre Garçon, and Kyle Shanahan are having like a major reunion right now because all of them have played together before, and all of them have succeeded highly before. And we all know what Shanahan can do to an offense. He's coming and basically turning it around with people who are like nobodies in the league. He went on ahead and grabbed himself, a number one target with Garçon, and then Hoyer, that people are sleeping on as well, maybe a good fantasy quarterback to stream in every now and again.
Or even as your backup, because everybody has usually a backup on the bench too. Hoyer could easily be one of those backups too. What about someone that you're staying clear away from?
This one is probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm probably going to be staying away from Ajayi, only because they got the upgrade in the quarterback with Cutler. Cutler's going to air that ball out. He's got too many targets for him to just, hand it off. And Ajayi might play a little bit in the slot, but that's not where, his fantasy value was at last year. His fantasy value was pounding that grass. So I don't think that he's going to get as much opportunity, and then he's constantly getting hurt with his knees. And I know that he pushes through it, but how long can he do it before somebody benches him?
Exactly. I hear you. Well, you know what, Naomi, it's been great having you on. I'm sure I definitely want to have you back on again when we're into this season, kind of touch base, see how your league is going. We'll see how my leagues are going. We'll hopefully see if Stephanie's learned a couple things throughout our podcast up until then, because I usually address the fantasy football at least once or twice at a podcast that we're doing. But how can our listeners reach you or find you on social media?
Okay, so at Twitter, you can reach me at @DraftQueens_NFL. And on Facebook, you can reach me on my Facebook page or group with @OGDraftQueen.
I love it. And then you also have the website, which is the draftqueens.co. So be on the lookout for Naomi Tate, up-and-coming fantasy football woman fanatic that we love to have on the show. So we'll be definitely reaching out with you again. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for the education.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime you ladies want me back, I'm ready.
Definitely.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks again to Naomi. Oh my God, so that was a little longer than we expected, but it was all worth it. When you can talk fantasy with another chick, it's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Chicks talk fantasy. Anyways, you guys, so huge news in the NBA. We kind of talked about it briefly, I think, earlier, but not really. So Kyle Irving and the Isaiah Thomas trade went down. Kyrie didn't want to be a part of LeBron's crew anymore in Cleveland. They finally found a home for him in Boston. I think everybody agrees that Cleveland got the best end of the deal. Even though I love Kyrie, but, Cleveland gets Isaiah Thomas, former Husky. They also get Jay Crowder, this Zizic guy from I don't know, Switzerland, Netherlands, somewhere, Croatia, I don't know. And then also they get an unprotected 2018 first round draft pick from the Nets. So this should be interesting come around next year as well. But this is all trying to help the Eastern Conference battle with the Warriors. Will it ever happen or make it better? I don't know. Having LeBron in IT is going to be pretty cool to see, but will we be able to get past the Warriors still? Who knows? So that was one thing. There's still talks of D Wade coming over to the Cavs. I don't know if that's still a possibility, but they were talking about that before the Isaiah Thomas trade, possibly before the trade deadline happens mid-season. So we'll see how that goes. But Stephanie has some Laker news.
Speaking of trades, the Indiana Pacers filed tampering charges with the NBA against the Lakers over tampering, possible impermissible contact with Paul George.
Ooh.
So if they can prove that the Lakers spoke with him while he was still under contract with Indiana, that they can be punished in several ways, including loss of draft picks, fines up to $5 million, future restrictions on acquiring Paul George in the future, and even suspensions of the officials involved. We're talking Magic Johnson.
Ooh.
So hope if he did, he burned a paper trail.
Can Magic buy his way out of that one?
I'm sure he can. In other Lakers news, happy birthday, Kobe Bryant! 39 today.
Oh my God, I'm older than Kobe Bryant.
Did you see that KD gave mad love to Kobe for teaching him to shoot the ball every time he's got it in his hand?
I totally did not see any of that. I'm anti-Kobe.
And last but not least, big ballers. They sold 3 pairs of shoes to Jay-Z.
I wonder if it was for the twins and maybe Blue Ivy. I want to see, is Jay-Z going to rock the BBBs? That's what I want to know.
No. In fact, they are $495 a piece. And the reason that he bought them is because it's important for him to help Black-owned businesses.
Of course it is. I respect that. I just don't respect LeVar Ball. But I think
the shoes are coming in 3 months.
Oh, Lord. That's because they have to get made in China right now. That's why. Basically. So, anyways, real quick, other news. So this weekend, the Major League Baseball players get to wear their nicknames on their jerseys. So that's going to be interesting to watch. So keep your eyes out for that. We're kind of also getting close to the end of the season. Playoffs will be starting for them. I think it's end of September, early October. WNBA, their season ends on the 3rd of September. When we come back here for our next podcast on September 6th, they will have started their playoffs. So that'll be entertaining. Again, this weekend's going to be huge. I'm sure we'll be posting mad crazy because it's Big 3 and Mayweather. So keep it posted to our social media. Find us at GirlChatSports on all social media. Like us on Facebook. Find us on iTunes. Share, comment, all that good stuff. Steph, where can they find you?
S_wash on all social media platforms.
And at Seattle, the number 4_life, Seattle for life. But before I go, I almost forgot. We're back with Arms of the NFL. Yes, we are. And before we go, my 3 Arms of the NFL that I have strictly chosen for this initial week was tight end Rico Gathers, who is on the Cowboys, number 80. This man's arms are ridiculous. He also never played football until in college. He played basketball only at Baylor. He is amazing.
I'm pretty sure that the last couple of podcasts you've spoken of my Cowboys and your fandom for Rico.
I'm going to get a I Love Rico shirt with arms on the side,
and
huge
hopefully
arms.
He makes the squad. He did
and
get a
hopefully
concussion.
He makes the squad. I will be contacting Jerry myself for that one. So also I have defensive tackle Damian Square from the Chargers, number 71.
The guy's a beast. He's got some massive arms.
I can pick him, right? Thank you. I know. And then also linebacker Landon Roberts from the Patriots. I don't like to mention the Patriots too often either, but this man has some amazing arms. Number 52.
Arms are so thick. He has an entire Bible verse tattooed on him.
An entire verse. So make sure this weekend, you guys, during preseason, that you check out, Rico Gathers will be playing, but Damian Square as well as Landon Roberts. They'll be playing for the Chargers and the Patriots. My team, the Seahawks, play on Friday, so we're going for win number 3, and that's about it for us. So we will catch you.
I won't be watching the Cowboys game because it's Saturday night when all the hoopla is going on.
All the hoopla is going on, so no one wants to watch the Cowboys. I mean, never mind. Anyways, that's it for us today. We will catch you later in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for checking out another great episode of Girl Chat Sports. And remember, we don't have balls, but we know how to cover them. Until next time, guys.